Welcome to episode 20 of the G2 on 5G. It's the latest inside scoop on everything 5G. We cover 6 topics in about 15 minutes, and it's brought to you by More Insights and Strategy. I'm Will Townsend, and joining me again this week is my fellow partner in crime, Anshel and Will. Let's get started with my first topic. Cisco announced a rural broadband initiative this week, and I continue to be impressed with what they are doing to invest in the unconnected. It's astonishing, over half the world still does not have internet connectivity. And this program is going to focus on a number of areas, including a lab effort. The lab is scheduled to be open, Cisco is saying, later this year to early next year in the Raleigh-Durham area. And it's going to focus on, bringing not only, Wi-Fi connectivity, but, LTE and 5G. And this is a game changer from my perspective. I mean, ag tech can benefit from it. You can apply connectivity on a more consistent basis to drive improvements in crop yields and that sort of thing. And honestly, a lot of people that are in rural areas are just underserved in general by broadband. So, I think this is, it's quite impressive from my perspective. I'm very passionate about this topic. And Cisco also happens to be very adamant and driving Open RAN, and they participate in a lot of forums and that sort of thing. And I think Open RAN can be that CapEx key to unlock the economic challenges in rural, because, Anshel, as carriers build services on top of amortized infrastructure, and you've got fewer subscribers in rural, so it's sort of a chicken and egg thing. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I think rural broadband is kind of a hot topic in America right now, because, places where I live, I have gigabit fiber, and I have 5G on all 3 carriers in San Diego.
Sure.
So, I go up to some other rural areas. Like I recently went to visit friends up in Northern California, up in Eureka, and they were astonished that T-Mobile had 5G up there, because they've been so used to having one operator, which was Verizon, for so long that they had no idea that T-Mobile had impressive and fast 5G speeds where they live. They've just become so accustomed to having bad coverage and bad speeds that they just expected nothing to happen. So I think it's a huge deal, and I think it's extremely important for people who live in rural areas, and also, honestly, I think it's a big political technology topic.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is. And it's, it's no secret that the current administration is very focused on rapidly deploying 5G. There's been this 5G fast plan, subsidies. I mean, some of it is rip and replace of Chinese infrastructure, but 5G is viewed as a GDP driver. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in my third topic. But let's shift to your first topic. And you want to talk about K-Systems and a new mmWave CPE.
Yeah, so Casa Systems, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. They had a trial with Qualcomm where they were able to get 2.4 miles of mmWave connectivity using their CPE, partnering with Qualcomm. And basically this week they were announcing the product that was, that's born out of that research and technology, and it's called the AurusAI, which is their mmWave access point, and is basically designed to operate on, 28 gigahertz. It's designed to, give people, home broadband connections that can, reach in the gigabits per second, and cover whole neighborhoods. So that way you can have one really strong, mmWave cell in the middle of a neighborhood and feed, hundreds of homes, which is ultimately the biggest problem with deploying, high bandwidth broadband to consumers, is that last 500 feet of coverage.
Yeah, last feet, not even last mile. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even last mile anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just getting it from the last node to the home. And fiber to the home is expensive unless you roll it out when you build the, the apartment complex or the housing. So I think mmWave is going to be a huge opportunity, and Casa Systems is going to be a big driver of that, I believe. And I think it's also maybe why some companies may have partnered with, say, Samsung on millimeter wave to, improve what their network can do on the millimeter wave, which I think is your second topic.
It is, yeah, it's a great segue. So this week, Samsung and Verizon announced a renewed partnership, a commitment on Verizon's part to spend $6.6 billion in infrastructure to support next generation 5G services. So there weren't a lot of details tied to this, this announcement, but it's no secret Samsung's been a key partner, Samsung Networks, with Verizon, with their fixed wireless access rollout initially, and now they're in the throes of helping Verizon deploy their mobile 5G network. So, as a side note, I was reading some other analyst comments, and the thought was that this is a big blow to Nokia. That this is going to take away a revenue, kind of an addressable market, for them in the U.S. Yeah, it's a lot of money, and Samsung continues to to really leverage its relationship with Verizon to build its footprint outside of its core Asian market. When you look back at 3G and you look back at LTE, Samsung Networks was really focused just on its core market of Korea, Japan, and Asia. And so with Verizon, they're really blowing it out. Any thoughts here on your part?
I think that this is a big deal for Samsung. It established them as a global 5G vendor because, like you said, they've mostly been in Asia. So winning a big win with Verizon, I think they also had a win with US Cellular a few weeks ago. So, they've got multiple billions of dollars of business just in the US alone. And I have a feeling that they're going to get looked at more seriously by other operators that are not in the US but are aligned with the US politically and are starting to pull out Huawei equipment. And now they have now they know that they have a reliable option other than Ericsson and Nokia to look at. So I think it's good for Samsung, and I do agree that it is kind of bad for Nokia. But I think the way Nokia is moving also doesn't really have too much bearing on this, I think, because I don't really see Verizon as a big Open RAN customer or one that, is pushing any of these more open standards. So I think Nokia is looking for a different market and different customers based on their current plan.
Well, Verizon is embracing virtualization. Samsung definitely, when you look at the big infrastructure providers, it's Nokia and Samsung Networks that are bullish on Open RAN, and you've got Huawei and Ericsson that are less bullish. And you could guess what the obvious reasons are there. I mean, it's going to erode their core infrastructure business potentially, but there's lots of software opportunities there as well, and all of these big infrastructure providers provide that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. So let's shift to your second topic this week, and you want to talk a little bit about T-Mobile. Seems like we talk about T-Mobile every week.
Yeah, well, I think it's fair that we do talk about T-Mobile every week, but it's also because they're the ones leading the charge on 5G in almost every imaginable way, right? They're still the only operator.
Right? We predicted that even before the merger came together.
They're still the only operator with standalone network in the US, and it's nationwide. And they're the only ones who actually have spectrum in all three forms of 5G bands. And they're the ones who I would argue, the most aggressively rolling out 5G. So it's no shock then that they announced another 2.5 gigahertz technology advance. This was with Ericsson. They partnered with Ericsson to deliver a single 100 megahertz channel of 2.5 gigahertz, which would use multi-user MIMO, which is basically allowing you to connect to multiple users at the same time and feed them all simultaneously instead of in serial as you deliver packets.
Yeah.
And they were able to connect 8 devices on the same cell at 700 megabits per second each,
Holy moly. That's
which
crazy.
translates to a peak throughput of that cell of 5.6 gigabytes per second on the 2.5 gigahertz band. So
Wow.
that's like millimeter wave
Yeah.
like performance,
I was gonna say, yeah.
but using mid band. Obviously, being very efficient with the use of spectrum because of MU-MIMO,
Yeah.
which is actually was previously a Wi-Fi technology.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, they were able to connect 8 users simultaneously, 700 megabits each, using the 8-layer MU-MIMO. So like 8, or no, not 8, 16, I think. Yeah,
Hmm.
they're using
16
16 layers of MU-MIMO,
Yeah.
which is double what they currently have. So that's part of the reason why they're able to get so much bandwidth out of it,
Hmm.
because they just have double the layers to work with.
Yeah.
But also, that's the technology that they're saying they're going to have in 2021.
Yeah.
So
So this is a proof of concept, right? So this isn't production yet, correct?
correct. This
Okay.
is a test that they did with Ericsson to kind of prove out what they
It's
can do with
capable.
it, what they can do with the 2.5 gigahertz band,
Yeah.
um, with proper beamforming and
Yeah.
being able to guide the beams in the right direction and while also serving people simultaneously, and kind of taking some of the benefits of millimeter wave and bringing them to 2.5.
Hmm.
So this is a huge advancement, and it's I think it's going to be a big thing for T-Mobile, because this is such a big band for them and they have so much of
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
that I think that there's going to be opportunities for them to fully utilize their 2.5 gigahertz in ways that I don't think we even understand yet.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, that mid-band, the propagation is already solid. It's a great balance of performance and propagation. And if these proof of concepts, these trials that we're seeing here, come into production, I mean, it could unlock a whole host of transformation and use cases. So it'll be fun to keep an eye on that. So we'll definitely do that. Let's move to my third and final topic this week. And the US government committed to invest $1 billion in 5G and other emerging technologies. And those other emerging technologies include things like edge and AI. And what I found interesting is that what's going to really be the impetus behind this is a lab effort at several major universities, including my alma mater, the University of Texas. And I think I've mentioned in the past, there's a wireless lab consortium there that works with industry partners such as Qualcomm, NI, Samsung. Huawei was a participant for a while as well. I'm not sure if they're still participating, but this is pretty exciting. I mean, the U.S. government is serious about their commitment to 5G. They clearly understand, the GDP impact that bringing, high speed and low latency connectivity to the masses will net out. And so I think this is just another salvo in the U.S.'s effort to stay ahead of that global 5G race. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I had a question since I didn't know
Yeah,
about this. Um, how long, over what period of time is that $1 billion being spent or granted?
that's a really good question, and let me look for that because it wasn't apparent to me when I read through the article what that
The reason
was.
why I ask is just because I find that a lot of these programs are multi-year efforts, right?
Yeah,
So it's not just for next year. So it might be like $1 billion over the next decade, right? So
yeah,
$1 billion over the next decade is only $100 million a year, which in my opinion is not enough. So even if you, let's say it's 5 years, it's
yeah.
still $200 million a year. I just don't feel like that's enough money to really um, properly support a lot of the research that's going on. Like I think you remember that research that was it DARPA that was doing, where they had the software-defined cellular networks, and so they could do spectrum pairing, like
Yeah,
completely
you shared
virtualized.
that on a podcast. Yeah.
Remember that? That's like
Yeah.
kind of older,
Yeah.
but that was like fully government funded, and I think that's something really interesting.
Yeah.
Whether or not we'll actually do it or use it, I'm not sure. But I think the idea of, allowing someone to explore an idea that may not be profitable for our business to do, I think is a really valuable thing for our government to do. And I
Yeah.
just feel like maybe $1 billion is a bit low.
Yeah, here, yeah, I just scanned the article and I don't find, any sort of time horizon, but that there is a divvy of funds between this lab effort that I was referring to, because there's several technologies. There's AI Edge and 5G, and there's some other ancillary ones as well. So they show that they're dividing these kind of
So
sums of money.
it's even less.
Yeah, so it's getting stretched over, different modalities, but obviously AI has a huge impact in 5G and bringing more predictability and insurance and higher quality of service and that sort of thing. So these things I believe are going to intermesh, but yeah, I mean the U.S. government continues to dedicate funds to get the infrastructure in order. So well, let's move to your third topic, and I'm just going to throw it to you and let you take us through the third topic.
Sure. So one of the big companies that's been building a lot of hype in the XR space is nReal.
Mm-hmm.
They have these glasses which are very small, low profile, very high quality, very light. They're getting a lot of attention, and they've actually already announced a bundle with the Note 20 Ultra in Korea with LGU Plus.
Mm-hmm.
So you can already buy these and use them with a smartphone. So they're AR glasses, but
Okay.
What the big deal is, one, that they raised $40 million in a Series B, which is a big amount of money, is going to give them the opportunity to grow internationally, I believe, because they've been pretty focused on Korea, even though they are a Chinese company. But it seems like the Korean operators are very focused on them. I think they also have a partnership with Deutsche Telekom.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two places where they're really focused right now, but I think you'll give them opportunities to expand into the US and other markets with this $40 million round. But also LGU Plus, with their partner, or their lead partner, also spearheaded an XR content alliance for use on 5G networks last week, which we didn't cover in the podcast, but I wanted to bring up now because I'm bringing up nReal and 5G. And nReal really wanted their platform to operate on 5G phones, which is why they paired it with the Note 20 Ultra, or the Note 20. I don't think it matters which one you get. But that new 5G content XR alliance includes Qualcomm, KDDI, Bell, China Telecom, and the content house Felix and Paul. So they've pretty much picked some of the best operators in the world and Qualcomm, as well as Felix and Paul, who make some of the best VR content in the world. So I'm very excited to see what this alliance or partnership, or I guess you could call it an alliance, XR content alliance on 5G will produce moving forward, because I think there's a vast shortage of content right now.
Yeah, I agree. Like I bought, I think it was a year ago, the Oculus. Is it the Oculus? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And it's sat in it's really big and bulky, and it's just sort of sat in the drawer there. But I'm assuming like this goggle, this
it looks like sunglasses.
Frames. Okay, so it's very thin and lightweight, and
it looks like a slightly bulky pair of sunglasses.
Oh, gotcha.
But not very bulky. Like if you saw somebody across the street, you wouldn't know they were wearing Air glasses.
Got it. Versus the others that I have, you would definitely, I'd be a nerd. I'd be like bumping into stuff.
Yeah, I keep most of the nerding at home.
Yeah, probably a good thing, man. Well, that sounds really cool, and I think the applications for these thinner, lighter goggles are, not only for, consumer, mixed reality applications, but for enterprise,
Well, enterprise is what's driving most of the consumption right now for most of the AR. And the thing is, these XR glasses, a lot of them are focusing on enterprise right now, and they don't, consumers coming second. So that's why companies like Magic Leap had to pivot to enterprise.
Yeah.
But the long-term vision is actually that a lot of these glasses will run through your phone,
Yeah.
but will actually not use your phone for processing. And that edge compute on the 5G networks will do most of the heavy lifting.
Got it.
And that's
Yeah.
part of the reason why I think these alliances exist as well.
Yeah. No, it's exciting stuff. I know, you know, mixed reality, AR, VR is an area you cover. So look forward to future updates here. So, hey, bud, another great podcast. Why don't you take us home?
Absolutely. We hope our viewers and listeners found this week's topics interesting. If anyone out there would like to provide insight on a specific 5G topic for a future podcast, please reach out to us on social media. Will is at Willtown Tech, and I'm at Anshel. We hope you have a great weekend, and please tune in again next week.